Single-grip harvesters have very quickly become popular in Swedish forestry. The felling and processing devices are incorporated into a single unit mounted on the end of the boom. This is proven to have many advantages, particularly in thinnings. Thanks to single-grip harvesters, low-cost thinnings with a good biological result have become possible. But this is conditional on the machines being used properly. In this film, we shall be looking at a suitable method of thinning using a single-grip harvester operating in strip roads. In Sweden, the Silvicultural Act prescribes that strip roads for thinnings must not cover more than 1/5 of the area. This means that the strip roads must be spaced 20 or 30 meters apart. Consequently, the machine cannot reach all the trees from the strip road. So the stand has to be divided into a boom operating zone and an intermediate zone. The boom operating zone includes the standing trees that can be reached by the boom from the strip road and also the trees in the strip road itself. The trees in the intermediate zone have to be felled by chainsaw to enable them to be reached by the harvester. There's a number of jobs that have to be carried out in the stand before the harvester can start work. Outline planning includes marking out the boundaries. And then detailed planning of the strip roads. Strip roads should be run as straight as possible to avoid unnecessary damage to the stand. Marker tape should be tied to trees in positions where the machine operator can always see at least 2 in front of him at a time. Each strip road is numbered. Once both the outline and detailed planning have been completed, a sketch map of the stand should be available, showing the boundaries, the strip roads, the number of each strip road, obstacles in the terrain, and landings for the wood. Cleaning may be required if the underbrush is likely to impede the work of the harvester. Felled trees must be cut off cleanly to keep them out of the way. It usually won't be necessary to mark the trees to be thinned except in stands with damaged trees or if a new machine operator is undergoing training. To ensure that the butt log will be properly de-limbed on trees with branches growing all the way down to the ground, some pre-limbing work may be necessary. Once the planning and other preliminary work have been completed, thinning can be started. The machine operators start by familiarizing themselves with the stand on foot. At this time and in the following work, it's important that the operators have access to a good sketch map of the area. This is particularly important if the operator has not been involved in the planning himself. A good sketch map is also helpful to the forwarder operator. The work starts at the first setup with the machine felling the trees it can reach in the strip road. After that, it thins the trees in the boom operating zone. The operator needs to have a good view from the cab so that he can select the right trees and position the machine properly. To keep the stump short, the operator can slide the head down the stem. In fact, this is essential when there is snow on the ground. If trees are close together, they should be felled by chainsaw at the same time as the trees in the intermediate zone are felled. In this way, unnecessary damage to the trees can be avoided. The felling work is always easier if use is made of natural clearings in the stand. Trees easily become hung up in dense stands. By lifting the tree out towards the strip road and at the same time feeding it through the head, the operator can usually free the tree quite easily. The limbing bucking or limbing cross-cutting operation can be done either towards or away from the machine. Limbing bucking towards the machine involves less boom movement. However, there must obviously be at least one log length of space between the machine and the processing place. If the ground is soft or the roots of residual trees need to be protected, the thin trees should be lifted over to the other side of the strip road. The slash can then be deposited to form a protective cover for sensitive roots. For effective limbing, the limbing knives must be kept sharp. The knife must have a beveled cutting edge with a suitable bevel angle depending on the tree species and the season of the year. A larger bevel angle will be necessary in pine or hardwood stands than in spruce stands, and in summer as opposed to winter. Thick branches and crooked stems can create problems for the processing head. To pass a bend in the stem, it is an advantage if the limbing knives can be released slightly to enable the stem to be fed through the head more easily. Bunching is easy using a single grip harvester, although the operator has to be careful to avoid damaging the residual trees as the wood is discharged. To make it easier for subsequent forwarding, the logs from the strip road thinnings and boom operating zone thinnings should be orientated the same way. After the trees in the boom operating zone have been thinned, the logs from these thinnings and from the strip road are left in piles on either side of the road. Once thinning in the boom operating zone has been completed, it is time to start work in the intermediate zone. In a first thinning with the strip roads spaced 25 meters apart, about 1/5 of the total number of trees to be thinned will come from the intermediate zone. The trees are felled by chainsaw, preferably towards the nearest strip road. To make both processing and subsequent forwarding easier, the trees should be felled in the same direction as those that have already been processed. All the logs will then be orientated in the same direction. By leaving the felling in the intermediate zone until the trees in the boom operating zone have been processed, a final inspection can be carried out in the stand. Any trees that have been overlooked in the boom operating zone can then also be removed. Once the trees have been felled, they are processed by the harvester. It is important that the part of the tree to be gripped is as close to the strip road as possible, as otherwise it is very likely that the top of the tree will be snapped off. When this happens, the machine usually has to be repositioned, which obviously has a detrimental effect on productivity. Limbing bucking can start at the top or at the butt end. If the tree is to be bucked into random lengths of pulpwood, it is best to start from the top. The processing can also be adjusted to deposit the slash where required. If all of the slash is not needed for the strip road, the trees at a distance from the road can be fed towards the machine. Conversely, if all the slash is needed for the road, the trees are lifted to the other side for processing. If the trees are to be bucked into saw logs or into pulpwood bolts in standard lengths, bucking must start from the butt end of the tree. A suitable method here is to delimb the entire tree, working from the top towards the butt, followed by bucking in the reverse direction, starting at the butt end. The operator can also use the boom to pass the tree along so that bucking can start at the butt end. Often the trees will extend so far into the strip road that whichever way it is done, bucking will still be the quickest from the butt end. In this case, care has to be taken to prevent the top from damaging the residual trees. If pulpwood is to be bucked into bolts of random lengths, processing can start at the top. On the other hand, if the tree is to be bucked into saw logs or into pulpwood bolts of standard lengths, processing must start from the butt end. After the thinning operation has been completed, wood from the boom operating zone and from the intermediate zone will be left bunched together in the same piles. The forwarding operation should be carried out in one pass, since the wood volumes are small and 2 passes would increase the risk of damage being done by the forwarder. A good way of deploying the harvester is to use it in 2 overlapping 12-hour shifts, crewed by 2 operators alternating between work on the machine and work on the ground. In most thinnings, the operator on the ground will be able to fell the trees in the intermediate zone and will often have time to do the detailed planning as well. This form of job rotation has many advantages. It's easier to coordinate the manual work and the machine work since the operators do both jobs. If the operator doing the manual work in the intermediate zone also did the mechanized felling in the adjacent boom operating zone, he can himself follow up the work he did in the boom operating zone. Any trees that were overlooked in that zone can then be removed at the same time. A harvester operator has to manipulate the boom controls continually. If he works for too long a period, muscles, such as those in the neck, can soon become tired. In addition, his powers of concentration deteriorate considerably if he works for too long without a break. Job rotation is one way of ensuring that the operator does not work for too long at a stretch. To sum up, used properly in thinnings, single grip harvesters are cost-effective, can produce good biological results, involve simple planning, and can enable thinning to be done all the year round.